Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I am running this episode as a solo episode and touching on some of the lessons from last year, but as recording this, it's 2025, Happy New Year, and what I'm going to be bringing into the new year, but the things that were really the hard hit realizations of 2024, and I think that they will become the foundations for 2025. And for me, my process, what I went through and how I'm using that to move forward, hopefully that can provide some inspiration for you or maybe be super relatable for you as well. So thank you for joining. I think one of the best things is the fact that I brought back the podcast last year. And it's one of those things where there is a part of timing that comes into play in all of this. And the start of the year, I say this on the podcast a lot, there's a lot of things that happened in my life that I have shared a little bit about, but I probably won't share the full story on it, especially on the podcast, because quite frankly, it's quite private. And also there's some respect for some people involved, but it wasn't the time for me to be sharing anything. I just wasn't in the mental state. I didn't have capacity to be sharing conversations or editing or all these things. So it's really interesting that, once I processed a lot of those emotions and the things that were happening and I got to, midway through the year, by doing that sort of work, it brought me back to the podcast because I started to reconnect with my true values in life. And the podcast was something that was a really a really beautiful part of my life that I love doing. It fulfills a lot of my needs. It fulfills a lot of my values. And I just love doing it. I think it's the most fun thing I get to do. I've been doing it for 6, almost 7 years now. And every conversation just gets better and better. I enjoy myself more and more. And hopefully you're getting these powerful conversations and you're taking away lessons that you can implement in your life. And I think that's what, for me, has been so inspiring, is the fact that when I've brought it back after this, I had like a year break, probably even a little bit more, name change, all those types of things. And bringing it back, I was like, there's no pressure. I'm not going to change anything. I still use the same 2 cameras that I've had for years, the same headset setup. I do have a new location, but this is kind of by luck or by chance because it's a room within the apartment building that I live in. So it's become really awesome to use as a studio. And I just wanted to put it out there. And the fact that it's connected with so many of you is just incredible, whether that's through Instagram, through the Reels, Facebook through the Reels, YouTube long form and short form, and also on TikTok. And that's where it really took off. And I think coming back into the podcast, I was like, well, if I'm going to share these, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to set a standard for myself and do it. And the fact that, we were able to reach, it was nearly 5 million people last year in just the 4 or 5 months of being active was just crazy numbers. And it is a huge achievement. I was kind of brushing it off as like, numbers don't mean anything, but it's kind of gratifying to know that many people are being impacted by the podcast, whether it's just viewing the video or listening, or they're actually consuming it and taking something from it. So thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are. I think one of the biggest things you can do for me or anyone you listen to or enjoy consuming their content is to go subscribe, but also leave a review. It looks really good and it feels really good if you leave a review of how it's impacted you. And I think the other side of that is come and follow me on my Carlo _Cirillo profile, but also the Conscious Podcast, and reach out. If something has stood out to you, or you've got a question, or you enjoyed something, it's something that I've started to do. Is the creators that I enjoy is reaching out and saying, hey, thanks for sharing that. Like, I really loved how you said this, or I love that guest that you brought on. I learned so much. This is how I've implemented it. Those things, it's more connection. And I think for me, running this podcast, I never had an expectation of it going anywhere per se, and I never knew that it would have connected with so many people in the way that it has. I've made some incredible friends from the podcast. I've made friends last year from posting on TikTok and then we getting in touch and we've got this big plan to meet, like if there's a few of us that want to meet up in Bali this year. Like, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't share, one, the podcast, but two, then also be like, oh, you know what, stuff it. I'm posting on Instagram and YouTube anyway. Might as well put it on TikTok. Like, the things that can happen from you following your passions is just crazy. It's not really one of the lessons I was going to share, but what a really good point to share is that, one, I'm so grateful for you listening, and reach out, connect, start a conversation. I'd love to connect with you. Two, what a good reminder to do things that you enjoy. Again, I wasn't starting the podcast to run a business or make money from it. It was, I love doing this. Why would I not do this? It fulfilled me in so many ways. And the fact that it's leading to new connections, more opportunities, and to do more of the things that I love doing, isn't that really awesome? I think there's been this wave of, okay, if you're going to start a podcast, it's all about creating 12 pieces of content, and it's got to be a niche topic about this, and you have to get these people on, and the numbers need to be this, and then you have to get sponsors and brands and this and this and this. I think it got too complicated, and I see it from the side of there is an opportunity there, of course, but I think the listener, yourself, or watcher, if you're watching on YouTube, is smarter now. You can kind of tell if someone's doing something from a place of, a good intention, or they're doing it from a business perspective. And there's nothing wrong with business podcasts if they're niche for a certain reason. So I listen to podcasts that are about business. One of the ones I've listened to for many, many years is Smart Passive Incomes with Pat Flynn. I listen to it for that reason. It's not... I know it's his passion too, but he runs a business through it. And for me, like, I think if you listen to any of the conversations, I'm very specific with who I bring on. The guests, I don't necessarily know them all, per se. They're not all my friends. But even when I reach out to them, there's that initial conversation. And before we start the podcast, I go for a coffee. We go down to the local coffee store here and grab a coffee and have a chat, and I get to know them a little bit better as well. So then when we come into the conversation, there's depth. There's good intention that's been set of, well, this is not what we want to talk about, but this is what the Conscious Podcast is all about. And hopefully you feel that through the conversations. And I honestly think the conversations that I've had in the past 4 months have been incredible. Like, if you've a long-time listener of the podcast, thank you. You would have seen my evolvement. And yeah, I did jump on the bandwagon of who's got the most followers. Let's interview them. And I'm still in between. Do I do online episodes with people that I have in all over the world? Or do I just kind of wait on those until I go overseas and then I can sit down and interview them? I'm not sure. One thing that will be happening is the Conscious Podcast will be staying because I love it as it is, and I think there's so many incredible people that I want to interview and have conversations with. But the other side is I'm going to be launching my own podcast that is just me talking and teaching and sharing, and I think that's really exciting, and it kind of works in together. But it's the Conscious Podcast will stay for conversations with guests. My podcast will be solo episodes where I'm teaching. They'll be much shorter. But yeah, they're just some things I'm excited about. But let's get stuck into the lessons. Look, I'm just going to share one, and I think this has been really powerful, and it's only just landed recently. And that was, I was listening or watching, I can't remember, but it was a quote that came up, and it was, "It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility." So whatever happened may or may not have been your fault. Like, it may have been your mistake or your actions that caused something, or may not have been. But whatever it is your responsibility on how you respond to that, react to that, rectify that, and move forward from that. And I think if a lot of us took more responsibility or had the awareness of taking more responsibility, then it doesn't change what happened, but it changes you moving forward. You can take the lesson from it. Maybe there is a conversation or apology for whatever happened, And then you start moving forward, being more responsible in your life. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. Let's look at last year. Things would have happened that were your fault and that weren't your fault. So we're not putting all the blame on others or ourselves, because in reality, it was both parties that both things can happen. But no matter what happened, we can't change it, but we can take responsibility and say, I played a part in that somehow, and now I'm responsible for creating something new and better. So if you're looking at this year, you can either not be responsible and just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to let the same things happen and don't do anything about it. Or you can be responsible and do something about it. You can create the life you want to live. You can be the person or become the person you want to be. And I think what hit me last year, because there was so many rock bottom moments for me, I say rock bottom, no one's ever going to truly know how I felt, what happened, my situations, why I made decisions, all those things. And no one will ever know for anyone's situation. But I got tested in so many different ways and felt pain and sadness that I've never felt before. And I think I say that every year, but it just went to a new depth and a new level that I never expected would happen. And I had to sit in that for a long time to move through it. I didn't need to go do any course or read any books or listen to any podcasts. I just needed to sit through it. And I hope you don't have to go through that this year. I know it does happen in life. I went through, turning 30. I went through a death of a family member. I went through having a child. I went through my whole life situation completely being pulled out underneath me. And I think even amongst that, I unknowingly had to take that responsibility. Like, some of those things were my fault and not my fault, of course. But it took a while for me to then really embody that I need to take responsibility for this. And when I did take responsibility, I started taking action in the areas that I needed to improve. It's just so wild that even amongst a year that was so intense for me, and not, if I look at it from the sense of, the first half of the year was the really intense part, right? In terms of business and financials were terrible because I stopped everything. My brand is me. So when I'm not on, it was hard to show up. I didn't even know, I was kind of disconnected from what I was doing anyway. So I didn't show up online. I was very quiet. No one heard from me, but I went to full hermit mode. But even amongst that time, my brother and I built a soccer academy that, I'm going to say almost made we made 6 figures last year. How crazy is that, right? There was still action being taken in different areas. I may have had to put a lot of things on pause, but the energy was shifted in other ways. I shifted my focus back onto myself, my health, my energy, my fitness. Like, I've been in the gym consistently and I look and feel the best I've ever felt. So there's those things. It was the little things like meditating again, praying again, connecting to, that spirit within me again. And I think that when we go through the hard times, or even just, other times, we get so distracted. And I noticed how social media was playing on me, and I was, constantly just checking, okay, what's happening on, my emails, what's happening on Instagram, what's happening. I've got like 7 profiles on Instagram. So what's happening there? What's happening on Facebook? What's happening on Marketplace? What's happening on TikTok? Like, I'm the only one that could have pulled myself out of that. And I had to be like, no, stop being distracted by those things and focus on the essential things. There was a book that I read, I can't think of it right now, but it's like something about essential that showed me that, focus on the little things. Even YouTube, there's some amazing content, but you can also get lost in watching it every single day. And I guess that kind of brought me to the second half of the year where I just started doing things that really aligned with my values. I had to get really connected to those. And I'm someone that talks about values. I've been sharing in my program for 7 years now the importance of values. And I kind of and this happens, we get distracted by life and we forget those values, and then we don't update them because they do, we need to retouch base with those and reconnect to those. And once I did, I was like, okay, I just need to live in those values. And starting the podcast came from that. And it was like, who am I? And what do I want to create with this life that I've got? And maybe you ask yourself these questions coming into the new year. I know I do. But it's really like, who am I and what am I here to do? Why am I here? And I started asking these questions and going through my values, and it was like, well, I'm here to create. I'm here to create content and experiences and spaces where people can learn and grow, feel safe, feel like they belong, and they can elevate themselves to another level in their life, whether it's through their mind, their body, their soul, whatever it may be. I'm here to teach. Not teach as in like a teacher at a school. I think that'd be really cool. But teach, like I have this knowledge that I've learnt and gained over the years, and whether it's through my experience or from learning from others, I love breaking things down into like simple forms that people can actually consume and put them into actionable steps so people can implement them in their life. This is why I love running events, workshops, retreats, all those things. I stopped all those things. Again, I was disconnected from those, but I love teaching. I love being on stage. I love being in front of the camera. I love teaching things that I'm passionate about. And if you've known my work, it's foundational things. It did go off onto like a, shiny object, crazy, whatever the flavor of the month was, but it's really the foundational things. And then leading. And I always used to hesitate at the word leader, even though I'd been like captain of my soccer teams for years in many different places, and I'd lead teams. I had a leadership program, and like I'd always known I was a leader, but I'd kind of shy away from it. And right now it's like really embodying that, being a leader, and being a leader that people can not so much look up to in an egotistical way, but someone that they can look to has good intentions, that wants to actually help and support people. And I think the whole thing with consciousness and the Conscious podcast is, Dr. Dane here was on the podcast many years ago, and he's about to be on soon. He said consciousness is where everyone and everything exists and no one and nothing is judged. And that stayed with me for so many years, because it's like, there are so many opinions. There are so many people saying, do this, do that. And I think that we get so distracted by that we lose. There's so much pressure, and we lose that freedom to just be and be accepted for that. So for me, it's leading from that place and showing people that, hey, it doesn't have to be all these ways that everyone's saying. I want to lead you down the path of connecting deeper with yourself. The rest of the journey of life will unfold and take care of itself. If you don't connect to yourself, know thyself, love thyself, and be thyself, it will make that journey a lot harder, and you won't have a foundation to lean upon when it comes to those challenges that happen. But if you do have that deep connection to self, your life will not come with challenge. It will have challenges, but you will feel more fulfilled. You will have more meaning, and you will have more purpose. And I think that those are the things that we're looking for, no matter where we live, what our income is, whatever it may be. And I think that leadership part for me is showing people the way. Because I'm not sitting here from I have this car and this and this and this. I've got a lot of results because I've taken a lot of action in my life. I've had the 50K months. I've traveled the world. I've lived overseas. I've, started multiple companies and businesses. And that's me, right? It's not to compare, right? I'm not saying do all that. But if you want to start a business that's just for money, I've done that. If you want to start a business that's a passion thing, I've done that. If you want to start something that's just a passion and it isn't a business, I've done that. Like, I love showing people the way. That's what I'm trying to get to. And like I said before, I think connecting back to that allowed me to step back into podcasting and allowed me to host events. And if you've on my socials, you'll see that I've hosted a few, and kind of little promo moment. I'm about to host one, hopefully at the end of this month in Melbourne. I'm really excited for, and hopefully I can start doing them around Australia and around the world, and it all comes into play with the community that I'm creating and the membership, and that will be, again, the foundation of the simple things in life. And I think for a lot of us, when you know thyself, you know who you are, you know your values, you know your why, you know somewhat of your purpose, you feel more confident in who you are and the direction that you want to go in, because there's so much available. But if you don't have any direction, it feels kind of limiting, and you feel stuck just doing the same thing, and you resort to autopilot. Love thyself. I think there's always more love that we can give ourselves. There's more forgiveness that we can, go through and work through to not so much let go of the past, but accept and love these parts of us that we hold on to still. Even if we've been to the events and done all the blah, 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 insert whatever course here, there's still stuff to do. I don't think we ever get to a point where we accept every part of us, but we can keep going along, more acceptance, more love, more forgiveness, more joy. And be thyself is us being authentically ourselves. And again, that got shown as, if you're authentic, you're doing this, you're running a personal brand, and you're working for yourself and all this. Cool, I think they're options, but being yourself is you waking up and not comparing to anyone else, you feeling aligned to you feeling good about yourself, and you feeling like, I don't have to impress or suppress for anyone else. And that lightness is so freeing. And I think that's what we're searching for, is freedom, where we want to be free to be ourselves, to pursue the things we want to do, and to live a life that we want to create without the pressure from other people, from society, from our friends, from our partners, from whatever it may be. I don't think that becoming an entrepreneur and a podcast host is for everyone, right? I think that everyone has their incredible place in this world and in their own world. And if that's working a job in something that you like or don't like, amazing. You have to then choose, is that the life that you want to live? Because there's definitely points where, are you staying in it because of comfortability or whatever it may be? It's like if I was to say, and this is the leadership that I want to come from, is that, am I going to go out on this podcast and on social media and say, if you don't do ice baths, then you're not living your incredible life. If you don't do breath work, if you're not 100% regulated, if you haven't mastered your whole life, then you can't live the life you want to live. I think that's just ridiculous. I think that, we've been sold on so many things, and we've tried things, and we've realized that all these shiny, new, fantastic things have their benefits, but the foundation of who you are, again, know thyself, love thyself, be thyself, that is what is most important in all those things. I think you will find regulation of your emotions, of your body, of your mind along the way. You will hit achievements and goals along the way. But if you don't know that foundation, you don't get that from doing these modalities. Okay, they may bring more clarity, but I think finding that is the starting point. And then try all these things and do all those things. And I think that if you're at a place where you're like, okay, I want to work on that foundation, it's not from a place of you're lacking, you're at the rock bottom of your life. You don't have to be at that point. I think every single year, every quarter really, every single year, coming back to what is that foundation, we have to ask questions to get to that point. We have to create space and time for ourselves to actually understand who we are and what life we want to create. And then we have to have checkpoints along the way. We have to check in with those things. DeMartini said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, our values are always evolving and changing. We have to check in with them every 2 to 3 months. And this is like stuff that if we're left alone, we probably won't do because we get busy with life. And I can admit that as well. But what I'm wanting to create and lead is a community where we do this every single year. It doesn't, there's obviously got to be some sort of container for that to happen, but I've created that. I'm creating that. So if you're interested, connect with me and go to my website and go to the links below, because that's where you'll find all these things. But I think that if you are in a place where you're feeling like, okay, I've tried all these things like I did, I want to just feel good. And I want to create a life that's for me, that's of more meaning, of more purpose, that's not like what everyone else is saying to do. Then awesome. I think that comes back to the lesson of be responsible for that. Be responsible for taking actions. Be responsible for setting time aside to actually get clarity on what that is. And I know for me, the big focus for this year is, for my own life, is elevating. Is creating those foundations, not just in, myself, but in my businesses, in my finances, and I think that when we have a good foundation, everything else that we are confronted with in life doesn't become easier, because I think that, hard things are going to happen. As I learned last year, things will happen that we cannot even think of. Different circumstances that are just outside of our control. But the more we have a solid foundation, when those things happen, even if we get brought back down to, ground level of our house, we still have the foundation to build upon. If we don't have that foundation, we can get completely ripped apart and unfortunately find ourselves in that spot for a long time. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anyone. And this is why I'm bringing myself back to teaching, because if I can share these things that have helped me and so many others, like I've got to, like, I could say this from my perspective, and I think that that's powerful, but I've had over 300 people come through my program, and the program focuses on the foundation. So if we can focus on those things, then we can create the life that we want to live from a solid foundation. And that then affects our emotions. That then affects how we respond or react to things. That then affects our actions that we take in our daily life. That then affects our relationships and how deep we go into those, whether that's with ourselves or with other people or our intimate partners. That then affects all our family members. That then affects our purpose and our work, whether it's at a job or in our business or in our passions. It then affects the energy that, or the impact that you make on the people around you. And these are things that I reflect on and I've looked at coming into this year, and it's like every time I've set an intention for my life in whatever area, whether I've hit it or not, I've either gone past it or just short. Either way, it created more opportunities for my life. If I didn't do any of those things, then my life just kind of coasted. And I think that, it doesn't make me the master of manifestation, but it just showed to me that, okay, like there's a reason for this. And it's not this crazy 12D codes and all that crap. It's not crap. I think they have their place, but it's the simple things, and it's being consistent, and it's, living a life that you want to live, right? That's my whole summary of everything. And I think we complicate it too much, we get overwhelmed too much, and we get distracted too much. And I think that if we keep things simple, we be consistent on the things that move the dial forward for us in our health, in our life, in our relationships, but then we also live in our values, you will create a better quality of life for yourself. It's just inevitable from those things. So, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for me. I think that, like I said, I'm taking responsibility from everything that happened last year, and I'm taking the lessons, and I'm also actually really going for it this year. I think that there's never going to be a better time than right now to impact the world in the way that I want to. And I honestly see everything in my life elevating in many ways. Yes, there will still be challenges along the way. Yes, there will still be things that I mistake and fail on and all those types of things. But I have my mission. I feel more connected to it than ever before. And once here's the other thing. If you know your mission, and I can help you do this through my program, right? If you know your mission, there is no competition. There is no comparison, right? It only becomes comparison when you're starting to look at other people and go, I need to be like them. No, if you live in your mission, you are clear, you're focused, you know where you're going and what you're here to do. And everything else is just, you're inspired by it. Because no one else is you. Once you know that, and this is where I've stepped into, you move with a different energy in life. And for me to go forward with that, with the podcast, with my events, with teaching, with my second podcast, with my community and membership that I've created, I'm feeling, and don't get me wrong, there's still doubts that come up, but I'm feeling so bliss moving forward. And I feel just, when people say I feel in alignment, I feel connected, I just feel on mission. And it feels like there is no win or lose. It's just live the mission. And there's no time frame. There's no amount of money that I could make that kind of hits the level and then that's it. It's the mission is here to be lived every day, and I'm here for the journey. I'm here for, everything that involves in it, and I'm just so excited to create that and to hopefully help you in doing the same. And I think that if you've made it this far and you're feeling like, yes, I want those things too, then come to my events. Come into my program. Like, I can't teach everyone I can't just do it on a podcast. I physically need to take you through these steps in a different space for you to actually do the work. I've tried it so many times, but that's the best way that I know you can take the most action to help yourself. And I think that if you can take responsibility, whether you do my stuff or not, you will create a better life for yourself. So I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you're wherever you're listening or watching, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment or a review, and reach out on Instagram, I think, or TikTok, wherever you're tuning in from. I think that's something I really value, and I'd love to connect with you. So again, take care. If you want any details about anything that's happening, I'd say go to the show notes wherever you're listening or watching. It will have the links. Just go to my website, www.carlocirillo.com. If you don't know how to spell it, check wherever you're listening and sign up to my newsletter, my email list, or you'll see all the things that are coming up there. And plug into them if it connects with you. I can't wait to connect with you. Can't wait to see you thrive in 2025. Thrive 2025. Ooh, that has a good ring to it. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, peace.